Well, good morning, everybody. It is Coach RJ, and I am the CEO and founder of the Impact You movement. Where our whole goal, our objective, our whole aim, our mission is to educate, to encourage, and to empower people with the tools necessary so that they can ultimately live out the best version of themselves. And listen, man, I am so fired up because we've made it around the sun one more time. I say it all the time that, woke up, didn't have a white chalk outline around my body. So it's a good day to be alive. But more importantly, I'm excited because today is Wednesday. And you know what that means. That means it's time for our moment of impact. And really, we come on every Wednesday because for us, we don't know how your week started. But most importantly, it's how you finish the week. The old saying is, it's not how you start, but it's how you finish. So we come on Wednesday in an effort to share some information that will help you have a better finish to your week than the week started. Man, I hope you guys are enjoying, the first 5 months of the year have already gone by. And man, it just seems like just yesterday we were kind of entering into this pandemic phase, and now it looks like we are on the tail end. Obviously, there are still some things, some challenges that lie ahead of us. But most importantly, man, we're into June. And so hopefully you have written down goals, you've got objectives, you got things that you're wanting to accomplish. And as the days and the weeks and the months have gone by, you've been able to check them off. Well, listen, friends, I wanted to hop on this morning because on my way into work, I typically listen to a variety of things. Sometimes I listen to Christian music. Sometimes I'm in the mood to listen to motivational speaking to kind of get me fired up. And then there are days that I hop on to the radio. I turn the radio on and I listen to the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. Yep, that's right. I like to listen to him. Sometimes I just want to go into work laughing, filled with joy and everything. And so this morning, ironically enough, as I was heading into work, they were talking about, they have a guy who comes on and his name is Gary, and he's Gary with the T. So he's always dropping information that he's heard or, something to that effect. And so I'm listening to him this morning and he's talking about Gloria Carter. And most of you all, you may or may not know who she is, but she's actually the mother of Jay-Z. And there was a report that they were kind of at odds with one another because on Jay-Z's last album, that he put out, 444, I guess I'm saying it right. There was a song called Smile. And this song really chronicled Jay-Z's life, but it was really talking about his mother. And most people, I didn't know this, but his mother, she's a lesbian, well and good. But the point of the conversation that Gary with the T was having, he simply said, listen, they were at odds with one another because Gloria Carter was upset because Jay-Z basically kind of shared that information in the song. And, really she felt like it wasn't his place, to kind of talk about, her story and everything. And so throughout their conversation, basically, it ended and everything was fine. But what he shared with her was something I thought was very, very profound. And I want to kind of talk about it a little bit this morning. He said, look, Mom, here's the deal. That's part of my story. Like, most people weren't aware, that's kind of what was taking place, as I was growing up. But it's part of my story. It's really what shaped me. It's part of what molded me into the man I am today. And so she acquiesced and she was like, well, you know what? At the time that the album came out, she had been living this lifestyle for a long time. So most people already knew that she was a lesbian. So, shook hands, love you, no big deal. In fact, I think she wrote him a poem and, he was excited because he was like, yeah, Mom, you got bars and everything and so on and so forth. And so, they tiptoed through the tulips. They live happily ever after, right? But the reason why I thought this was impactful, and that's what I want to talk about, is the words that Jay-Z used. He talked about how, that was part of his story. Now listen to these words. It was part of his story. Even though it was her story, it was part of his story. It's what helped to shape and to mold him, kind of give him perspective on life and just kind of talking about all the things that he dealt with. And that really brings me to what I want to ask you this morning. What's your story? Yeah. What's your story? And the reason why I want to talk about that this morning is because, you know, I say it all the time whenever I come on as far as the Impact You movement, that our whole goal is to educate, to encourage, and to empower people. Here's the key, with the tools necessary so that they can live out the best version of themselves. And I even ask about what's your story. Here's why. Because for many of us, we aren't living out the best version of ourselves. We haven't lived out the best version of ourselves, and we'll never live out the best version of ourselves. In other words, we'll never live an authentic life for two reasons. Number one, we're unwilling to own our story. That's the first one, and we'll deal with it in a second. But the second thing is we're unwilling to open up about our story. Okay, so keys to you living an authentic life. The keys to you living a life that you're supposed to be living. The key is, first of all, you have to be willing to own your story. So let me talk about that for a moment. What does it mean to own your story? It means that I've taken responsibility for the events that have occurred in my life. And for me personally, when I consider owning your story, I think about kind of where I am right now, right? I've been a pastor for years. I've preached God's word, and still when the opportunity presents itself, I'll still, step into the pulpit or out in public, whatever the case may be, and I'll share the gospel. But right now, I'm kind of in the season where I am, I'm in this space of motivational speaking and coaching and consulting and helping, challenge and motivate other people. And for the longest, I didn't own my story. In other words, I looked at people like Inky Johnson. He's a motivational speaker. He's a guy who, when you look at his story, he was a very good football player for the University of Tennessee, but he got hurt and paralysis on his right arm. And so that's part of his story. That's what made him, that's kind of what gave him the platform to really speak into the lives of other people. People like Dr. E.T. Thomas, people, you hear him, he talk about, when you want to breathe, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, like that's his thing. People know him because he dropped out of high school and he was homeless, and now he's going on to get an undergrad and a master's and a PhD. And for me, that's not my story. Like, I didn't have those struggles. And for the longest, I didn't own my story because I felt like that the platform that I wanted to utilize or be on, that it would be more impactful if I had a story like that. Like, real talk, like I did grow up in the hood, right? Dope was being sold. People were losing their lives. But real talk, like I had two parents, right? Raised in a Christian home. Like, that's my story. They did everything they could to make sure that there was a meal on the table. Like, my mom's worked, she took care of the home. My father worked, he was an entrepreneur, he pastored churches, and they did everything they could to pour into me. That's my story. So until I owned my story, I wasn't in a place where I was going to live an authentic life. And for many of you all, you will never live a life of authenticity. You'll never live the life, no matter how much you try. You'll never live out the best version of yourself. Why? Because you won't own your story. You're too busy trying to own somebody else's story. You got to be careful trying to own somebody else's story, because your story is just as impactful as somebody else's story. I was talking to my daughter the other day, Raven, my middle daughter. She's a phenomenal musician. She's, instrumental music, vocalist. She's a writer, all of that good stuff. And we're talking about how so many people make it because of their story. Like, their music is good, but because of the way they lived and where they came from, like it makes it more impactful. I was telling her, I was like, babe, like, you got your own story. Like, you don't have to worry about what they went through. You have your own story. Take pride in where you've been, where you are now, and where you're going. And for somebody who's listening to me this morning, that's one of the keys that you needed to hear. I've got to own my story. It is my story. Stop trying to be something that you aren't. Oh, man. Stop trying to be something or somebody that you are not. Stop trying to live out a life of somebody that you have no clue about. Like, you didn't go through that. So own your story. You know why? Because your story is yours. And it helps you live an authentic life. It helps you live out the best version of yourself. So not only is it important to own your story, But secondly, it's equally or even probably more as important to open up about your story. You have to have a willingness to open up about your story. There are people that you're going to come in contact with that, first of all, if you're owning somebody else's story, you're going to miss the opportunity to impact their life. Wow. Because you're trying to own somebody else's story. You're trying to live out somebody else's story. Right. And so when you have this opportunity to impact somebody else's life, when you interact with somebody else, what you don't realize is that you're robbing yourself and them of an opportunity to have their lives enriched, as well as your life be enriched because of your unwillingness to open up about your story. Why is your story such a secret? I understand you don't want to. Now, I'm not telling you to get on the rooftop and tell everybody or just yell out everything that you've gone through. But I am saying when the opportunity presents itself, you have to be willing to open up about your story. Now, I shared something earlier this year. It was a moment of impact, but I called it moment of impact, hashtag like the marriage edition. Because I was talking about, it was just, man, just the way that it fell on March 10th, because that is when me and my wife got married. So we celebrated 21 years this year. And so I was talking about how, hey, man, you know what? Our marriage has matured and we're at a different place now. But, back in 2018, I made some foolish decisions and how, that kind of put our marriage in a very tight spot. And so for the longest I wasn't talking about it. I just kind of kept it to myself. And the reality is that, my wife and I, we've done a lot of marriage coaching, not counseling because we don't have degrees in that, but we've done a lot of marriage coaching. And as a result of our willingness, or first of all, my willingness to open up about, my own struggles, it helped other men who had been facing similar challenges. But then me and my wife, us opening up to other people about our challenges in our marriage, it helped not only strengthen our marriage, but it helped people see, you know what? Yeah, they post a lot. They talk about how in love they are. That's real talk. But they have their own struggles and they're not ashamed of what they've been through. What I'm saying to you is this, and hear me clearly. When you have the opportunity to open up about your story, do so. Right? Because it really does what we're trying to accomplish here at the Impact You movement. It educates people. It encourages people. And it empowers people. It educates them because, you know what? I never knew that they went through something like that. It encourages them because it says, you know what? If they went through it, or if he went through it, they dealt with it, man, so can I. It empowers people. It gives them the strength. It gives them the wherewithal to stand up, roll their shoulders back, stick their chest out, not in a braggadocious way, but in a way that says, you know what? I'm going to get through this. Guys, I want to ask you a question, and I'd love to hear from you, whether you drop it in the comments or whether you send me a message. I want to know, what's your story? Because you just never know how owning your story and opening up about your story can lead to more opportunities in life. Not more opportunities to share your story, but opportunities for you to impact the life of somebody that you've come in contact with. Guys, it's been great this morning. I hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday. And whatever you do, continue to make a difference and be impactful. Y'all take care. Peace out.